afternoon, Known community. I'm Barb Nangle. I am the community manager of Known Co-working. Welcome to the Connection Corner. And we're a few minutes late because I had technical difficulties. It was actually the user problem. But we started at 12:34, which says 1, 2, 3, 4 on the clock, which is my favorite time to look at the clock. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. In a moment, I'm going to welcome our guest, Jordan Crooms. He is the co-founder of a little soy candle company. He'll be talking about the company, how it started, their goal of selling 1 million candles to help raise funds for nephrotic syndrome. So he'll be telling you all about that story. However, before I introduce him, I want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about Known. So it's a dynamic co-working community to connect people across their fields of expertise, endeavors, and experiences. And though we started as a co-working space in downtown New Haven and are still the only co-working space in downtown New Haven, we moved our community to the virtual world once the pandemic hit. As a reminder, Known Co-working has hourly, daily, and monthly plans for dedicated desks and office spaces, as well as conference rooms and Zoom rooms available for rent. If you'd like to know more about the space, feel free to email me. I can be reached at barb@knowncoworking.com. You can also check us out on our social media, Instagram or Facebook. We're at Known Co-working. Now, I mentioned that we moved our community online when the pandemic arrived, and as a result, we now have 3 virtual programs. We have Digital Media Sync, we have the Connection Corner, and Pivot Talk. So, Digital Media Sync is your window to the digital world. It airs Tuesdays at 8:30 and is hosted by Julia Gambale. And she's the social media maven of Agents of Branding. And she is a master at all things digital media. Pivot Talk is a virtual stage for businesses to share and learn as they grow. And this show, The Connection Corner, is a place for entrepreneurs, artists, creators, thinkers, educators, and community members to share who they are, what they do, who they serve, how, and why. And we try to air it weekly, but not at the same time every week. And if you or anyone you know would like to be a guest on any one of these shows, send me an email. Again, it's barb@knowncoworking.com. And I'd love to talk with you about the possibility of coming on the show. Our purpose in both the physical and virtual spaces is to make connections between people. And we're here to help you get connected, inspired, and get known. Speaking of getting known, we have virtual networking every Monday from 4 to 5 p.m. You can find us by going to our website, nhvknown.com, and clicking on events and scroll down to the calendar, and you'll see an icon about virtual networking. You click on that, it will take you right into the virtual meeting room. I'm there every Monday. I host. And I connect people to the people and resources and organizations that they want and need to be connected to. And without further ado, I am going to bring on Jordan. Welcome, Jordan.
Hey, Barb, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good, hanging in there.
I'm so glad you're here. So I'm going to let you just start talking about your company and the formation and all that stuff. And I'm sure I'll have questions for you. I
Sure.
do want to let the people who are watching know that if you have questions or comments for Jordan, feel free to put them in the comments and then I'll put them up on the screen for him. So take it away, Jordan.
So in 2017, my wife Jennifer and I noticed that our daughter was getting very swollen, and obviously it's a concerning thing. And at first it was kind of funny. We said to ourselves, like, are we giving her too much juice? Are we giving her too many, McDonald's chicken nuggets? But after a while, it kind of got excessive, and you really started to notice it around the eyes. She got really puffy. So we brought her to the doctor, and originally they said, this is just allergies. Have her take some Claritin. The next couple of days it should go away and she'll be fine. Of course, over the course of a week, that didn't happen. So we brought her back to the doctor to get a second opinion. And eventually, what we learned is she was diagnosed with something called Nephrotic Syndrome. And essentially, what it really is it's kind of a blanket term for a series of different symptoms. And there's really kind of 3 main things that it could be caused by. One of them is FSGS, minimal change disease, which is the variant that my daughter has, and membranous nephropathy. And basically what it is that the kidneys are spilling protein into the urine, which causes the edema, the swelling. And at the same time, it's possibly scarring the kidneys, which eventually could either, it can cause complications, or at some point you would need a new kidney. The other thing is it can cause hypertension, high cholesterol, and a bunch of other problems. So as once we figured this out, we Googled it and instantly became 100 times more worried. And we ended up finding a nonprofit that's based out of Pennsylvania named NephCure. And we formed a relationship with them. And, obviously we started trying to raise funds and awareness for this because it's such a rare disease. And it's hard. You can only ask people for so much money on Facebook, Instagram, or wherever. Most people are kind and they're willing to give 10, 5, $20 here and there. But over time, people kind of get exhausted, and which I understand. Not everyone has an unlimited amount of money that they can give away. So during this time, my wife started making soy candles. She had just left her job. She's came home to be with my daughter a little bit more. I was at the time going to school and working a job as well, so it was just a very hectic time. And she kind of, I think, used this as a way to kind of keep her mind off things, and just to have something else to focus on other than our daughter being sick. And eventually I got this idea that people were asking us for these because we were giving them away as gifts at first. People loved the fragrances we came up with. And I said, you know what, why don't we make a business out of this? Obviously we could use the extra money, and it's something that we've grown to actually enjoy doing. So we started selling them and it got very popular. Then I kind of matched this with the frustration of not being able to effectively raise money for nephrotic syndrome. So I said, well, why don't we kind of attach this to our candle so that we can provide a product to people, something that they like, but also have a charitable mission focus behind it. And because this is such a rare disease, we felt this was a perfect opportunity to also let people know about what nephrotic syndrome is. And so far, I think that it's grown immensely, and a lot more people know about it now than they did maybe 3 years ago.
All right. Just finding my way back into the studio here. Okay, so that's really good to know. How old is your daughter?
She's going to be 6 in October, which
Okay, so
that
she
is a
was
while from now, but I'm losing track of where we are in time,
so she
being
was
in the
like
house for a
two
year.
when this all went down originally?
So she was a little bit over 2 years old when she
Oh,
first
okay. All
first
right.
got diagnosed with this. Yep.
Kind of all she knows. And how is she right
Right.
now?
So thankfully, she's doing very well. So she was on medicine for a while. First, it started off with prednisone, which is a steroid, which is basically what it does is it shuts down the kidneys, and well, it restarts the kidneys in hopes that it corrects the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it also suppresses your immune system, which can raise
Right.
a host of other issues. She
Okay.
responded to that, but you can't really take that for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then she moved over to something called Cellcept, which is it's an immunosuppressant, but works in a different way. And she
Mm-hmm.
was on that for a little bit over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, over the past 2.5 years or so, she has been in remission and she's been responding well. And she hasn't even needed the medicine recently, which
Right.
is a great sign.
Fantastic. Okay, so good to hear it. So now I would like to talk, like wind back a little bit about starting your business because we have a lot of
Sure.
entrepreneurs and want to be entrepreneurs
Right.
in our community. So I'd love to hear how you went from this is a hobby to this is a business to how we connect it to the nonprofit organization. And before you go into that, I do want to say that on, I think it's the 25th, we are going to be having, yeah, it's next week on the 25th, Thursday, at 2 o'clock. Tracy Allen is going to be talking about social enterprises and social entrepreneurship because there's a lot of people out there who think what they need to do is create their own nonprofit organization in order to address a cause. And she has found that many people are completely misguided about how to do that. So I think it's really timely that you're on this week and talking about we made a partnership with a nonprofit organization rather than starting our own nonprofit organization and doing all that sort of thing.
Right.
So I just want to give you like that context because that's been on my mind lately because I've been talking. There's somebody in the knownpreneurs cohort who really wants to start her own nonprofit organization, and I think that Tracy has dissuaded her from that because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. So anyway, that being said, I'd love to hear the journey from hobby to business to connection as a fundraiser for the nonprofit.
Sure. So we started off making, maybe one or two candles. We ordered like a little candle making kit online. I think the first one we got was from Amazon, and it was really kind of just like an experiment to see, how it works, how easy it is, and just to kind of create something that's our own. And over time, mainly our family around us was interested in it because they liked the candles. They said, where do you get this? How do you do this? So at first it was kind of just like a hobby, and we'd do it on the weekends, and we'd give them away to friends and family. Over time, I noticed, this is becoming so popular, and more people are asking about it. I think that we should turn this into a kind of like a side hustle. We really didn't think about turning this into a full-time business or anything like that. And it grew more popular, and really where I think it took off was towards the end of 2018. We ended up getting a message from a girl that works for Fox 61 News, and she wanted to bring us on to talk about the candles. And once we hit that point, I think is really where it turned into a business. But I kind of felt like I was like, you know what, we have a good product that that people enjoy, and it's been growing steadily. But we also have a problem, and that problem is, how do we raise money for such a rare disease that a lot of people don't know about? And how do we do it in a way that doesn't exhaust people from just giving away all their money just because, someone needs it? So I was like, well, if we can provide a product or a service and also attach a charitable mission to that, I felt like it was kind of the best way to do that. And over the past couple of years, it's grown, and I think people have really have put their full support behind it. I mean, when I say we have the best customers, we really do. I know over time it's going to change, but we know them all on a first name basis, and we do local delivery. So in some cases, we know when they order, we don't have to put their address in the map, and we know where they live. And
I know you dropped them off at the shop. I was like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of people at first were like, "Wow, that's interesting," because when's the last time if ever, have you heard
Never.
someone just dropping off candles to your door?
Yeah.
And that's really the other aspect of this as well is. We want to raise funds. We're selling a product and service, and obviously we are a for-profit enterprise. But I think if you just lead with profit, it doesn't really do much for society overall. And we really want to create a positive environment where we are supporting something that's important to us and many other people around the country, in the world, and also impact the lives of people around us. Whether that's through our partners, our community, future employees, when we get there, we want to make sure that we're human centered, and everything that we do and every decision we make benefits everyone.
Yeah, agreed. I was just in a marketing presentation the other day for a guy who was on the marketing team for Talkspace. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it's like therapy online, and they started in, I don't know, 2015 or something. And he was there when they grew from 30 clients to thousands of clients. And he said, in the beginning of a company, you start with doing things that are not scalable, and they're about
Right.
building relationships with people. So that like delivering stuff to people's home is a perfect example of that. When you guys are selling a million candles, there's no way you'll be able to do that, but
No.
you'll have this community that's been with you for a long time that feels close to the company, the products, the cause that you're in, and all that sort of thing.
Right.
So
There was actually. Oh, sorry.
go.
I was just going to say we used to deliver to the whole state at one point, and this is when we were really small. And then, of course, when we started growing, there was just no way we could do it, and still having a day job and dealing with a 4 or 5 year old alone, it's just a full-time job.
Right,
So we've had to dial it back a little bit, but we're always looking for ways to expand that local delivery, and customers understand. And there's some customers who used to order from us who don't get that free local delivery, but they're still willing to support us, which is a good thing.
Wonderful. And how so you kind of like jumped over the hobby to business. So like what
Right.
specifically did you do to turn it from a hobby into a business? Do you
So,
remember?
so the first thing I really did is I ran the numbers. So I have an accounting background.
Okay.
So the first thing I was like, well, can we actually do this? Can we, make an actual business out of this and be profitable and, to keep the lights on? So I kind of just like spread it all out to see, does this make sense? Can we do it? How much does it cost to make a candle? Once we figured all that out, try to figure out, what's the price that we can sell these at. So kind of all the general business things. Then
Hmm.
of course, registering your business and doing all that. But to be honest with you, but aside from that, I really didn't do too much planning. We kind of just let it naturally happen, and
Okay.
we created an account on Shopify.com, which is what we use for our store, and we just kind of started throwing things up there. And one of the things that my wife and I really do a lot is as soon as we fix or change something, we instantly look for things that we're unhappy with, and we're just always trying to improve it. And when we look at the first candles we made compared to where we are now, it's kind of embarrassing because we're like, I can't believe we used that label, or I can't believe it looked
How it
like that.
works.
But
Yeah.
we're always looking for a constant way to improve, and I
Mhm.
think that's really the driver behind how we really got to a business. Is we just said, this is what we have now. We started off with probably about $100 worth of materials, and now we're selling a bunch of candles,
Mhm.
way more candles than when we started. So it's really just kind of been a gradual process, and it still is.
Yeah. I love that you started with the numbers because so many people are like, "Oh, people are going to love this."
Right.
Because they love it. And so you waited until you had a proven market, first of
Yep.
all, and then you like ran the numbers and said, "Okay, is
Right.
this feasible, as a business?" And there's so many people who either they don't do that or they don't even think about doing it and they underprice themselves and they run themselves ragged and all that. So it sounds like you're pretty smart about it. And then how long into the process did the idea of connecting to the nonprofit for nephrotic syndrome came along, and how did you make all that happen?
So it was pretty early on. It was probably maybe a few months after we started actually selling the candles. It was before it, I think, turned into a full fledged business, but
Mhm.
way in the earlier stage.
Mhm.
So before we even started, we've been in a relationship with Neph Cure Kidney International, and we go to local fundraisers. There used to be community walks. We did a bowling fundraiser a couple years ago, and really what they do is they invest in research and patient support. So
Mhm. Mhm.
they've been around for about 20 years now, and I believe, invested over $40 million in
Nice.
research. And they're really great people, and we love working with them. And it's also very family driven. So it's not just people who are working there. It's actually families who are affected by this,
Nice.
who take part in this. So like I said, we became very frustrated with trying to raise money. So I kind of just put two and two together and noticed the opportunity and said, hey, we have a product that people want, and we also want to raise money. Let's just connect these and see how it works. And when we first started, we said, well, we're going to do 10 or 20% of our profits. But the thing is when you're a startup and you're starting out, you may not be profitable in the first couple of years. So I was like, well, I don't want to say that and then not be able to give anything. So I was like, well, let's just take it right off the top and make sure that the money goes to where it needs to go straight off the bat before profits even a thing. So then over time we've kind of learned how things operate, learned the expenses of the company, and we decided to switch over to 10% of sales.
Okay,
So
got it.
that's the quickest way to make sure that the money that's being raised goes there
Right.
instantly.
And how'd you decide on the percentage?
Honestly, it was just a random number. I just
Okay.
thought 10% is probably a good one, and
Yeah.
it could change over time. Really, I would like to increase it over time,
Yeah.
as we grow. But of
Okay.
course, it'd be depending on our constraints.
Okay. And the goal for a million candles by 2030. I totally got to
Sure.
hear that because that's
so
that's awesome.
so back when COVID started, we actually we closed our company because there was a bunch of different things. One, there was a glass shortage, so we weren't able to get candle jars. Which, if you can't get candle jars, you can't make candles. And there was a bunch of stress related around that. Some family things, but also with our daughter being on immunosuppressant,
Mm.
she's the last person we want to get COVID-19.
Right.
So we kind of just didn't want to go anywhere. And obviously, part of our business model is delivering locally, which involves going out in the world.
Mhm.
So like kind of just, I think in a result of being quarantined, we're like, you know what, we can't do this right now. Like we have to focus on ourselves and, kind of just get our own ducks in a row. And which, it was a very difficult time for everyone. And so we ended up closing. We sold all of our, whatever was left, and kind of just spent the rest of the year thinking about it.
Mhm.
And it really kind of killed me because I knew that this was something good. I knew it's something that could be positive in the future.
Mhm.
So I kind of spent the whole summer thinking about bringing it back, and I like wasn't sure. And I actually got an email on one of our, which we rarely checked because after we closed, there really wasn't any activity on it. Got an email with someone asking, "Hey, do you have any candles left? Are you guys going to start selling them again?" And then we actually got a couple more, and I was like, you know what? Like we have to come back because there's people asking us for candles. I've been thinking about it for the past several months,
Mhm.
and there's no reason why we can't. Now that things are a little bit better, the summer wasn't as stressful, as like the peak of COVID was. So
Mhm.
like, what, let's come back. Let's do, maybe less fragrances than we did before, just to kind of focus on,
Mhm.
getting started. So then I was like, I was saying to my wife, I was like, well, we need something, we need like an ambitious goal. And I was like, let's say we want to, we want to sell like 10,000 candles by 2030. And then I was like thinking about it, and I was like, you know what, that's not a lot. Like, let's set a really big goal. And I was like, you know what, 1 million candles by 2030, and it sounds like a lot, which it is. But if you really think about it, over the course of 10 years,
Mhm.
it's probably about 270 something candles a day, which
Mhm.
we have more than that capacity to make a day. So I was saying to myself, let's set this really big, far out goal that I think we can achieve, and let's see
Mhm.
how people respond to it. And we actually ended up putting the candle counter on our website, which every time we get a sale, it updates. And I
Right.
think that's really a good, tangible way for everyone to see,
Mhm.
the goal that we reach towards. And if we do sell 1 million candles, that'll raise over $1.5 million for Nephrotic Syndrome.
Right.
And I think that would just be amazing, not only for the fact that it'd be supporting such a important cause to us, but to the fact that we achieved that and made that happen, starting from a
Mhm.
frustration of not being able to raise $10. But also, I think it'd be inspiring to other people, seeing that
Yeah.
like you said, you don't necessarily need to start a nonprofit to support something. And I
Mhm.
think this could be a way to bridge the gap between private and
Mhm.
and nonprofits, and
Right.
just have other entrepreneurs out there who maybe have a similar idea for whatever cause it may be.
Yeah. And you said 1.5 million when you get there, but what could happen over time, like you said, I want to increase the percentage we're giving them. If
Right,
that happens, it's going to be even more than that. But I want
right.
to go back to something that you said that you just sort of glossed over. And you said
Mhm.
to your wife, I want to set a big goal,
Yeah.
right? So there's a big giant goal. So I've heard people say if your goals don't scare the shit out of you, then they're not
Mhm.
big enough. And I
Absolutely.
know a lot of people are like afraid to set goals because they're afraid they're not going to reach them. And like what I've really learned really from my business is that I like to set goals that scare the shit out of me, but they're the ones that stretch me, and it's the act of stretching that is the thing that gets you where you want to be. And even if you don't meet your goal, it's okay
Right.
because you've still been stretched. So that fear of not meeting the goal is just a way to like self-sabotage that you don't do it. So I just want to ask about like where did that come from? Like I want to set a really big goal, because
So
a lot of people don't do that.
well, I thought about it a lot because, well, like I said, maybe we were going to start off with like 10,000, and it's a pretty achievable goal that you could set in a couple of years. But it didn't excite me. I felt like it was just kind of like, yeah, 10,000 candles and then we're done. But 1 million is a big number, and to a lot of people, $1 million, like just you think about like $1 million, 1 million people, it's a big number.
Mhm.
And I was like, all right, well, why don't we just set a crazy goal, which isn't so crazy when you really think about it, but to a lot of people it might sound ridiculous. And even the people I know, they're like, really, 1 million candles? But
Mhm.
I actually doubted myself a little bit because I was like,
Mhm.
is that kind of like ridiculous? Like, am I being like over ambitious? And I don't think so, because I think you have to have these far out, maybe even barely achievable goals, because that's what drives you. If we just set a goal of like 100 candles, we would have met it, and that kind of would have been the end of it. And it's
Mhm.
not exciting. So I
Mhm.
think it's excited our customers. and the people who hear about us, and it excites us because I think when we get there, it's going to be a huge achievement and it's going to be a great feeling. And knowing that that's just the beginning, I think, from there we can really do much more, and maybe even move to different diseases, different rare diseases, and other causes that are important.
Right. Or maybe expand your line of products in some
Right.
way, like hand
Absolutely.
cream, something like that. So what I love about that goal is not only that it is gigantic, but you broke it down. You were like, that's 270 candles a day. And not
Right.
only did you do that, you looked at we have the capacity to do 270 candles a day.
Right.
So that's what I think a lot of people don't do is they don't say, okay, here's the big goal. How do I break that down? And I was
Right.
thinking, oh, that's how many this many a year. And then you before I even like calculated that in my head, you were like, it's 270 a day. So I think that
Right.
is fantastic.
Yeah,
And
because we kind of started with like, here's where we want to be, and then just kind of reverse engineered it.
right.
And obviously, we're not really, given the fact that we are still a small company, we're not going to get there tomorrow,
Hmm.
but it's going to be a gradual,
Right.
growth. And I think that if we just focus on that, continue
Hmm.
to increase our capacity, knowing we could do it now if we had the
Right.
resources,
Yeah.
as long as we just keep reinvesting into ourselves and
Right.
making sure that we're keeping our eyes on the prize, I think we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like if because you have this as your goal, the kinds of decisions you're going to make about your company are going to be in the context of, well, is that going to get us to a million? Is that going to get us to a million? Is that going to get us to a million?
Right.
And like starting with, do we have the capacity to produce 270 candles a day? We do, right? So if you
Right.
did it, you'd be like, okay, well, we have to put stuff in place so that we can do that.
Right.
So it really helps with the decision making when you're like, here's where we're going, here's where we're going, here's where we're going. So that's fantastic. So I feel like all of my questions have been answered. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us that you haven't had an opportunity to share yet?
Well, I guess I would like to say that, overall, what we really want to do is kind of just show everyone a little bit about social entrepreneurship. And
Hmm.
like I said earlier, there is a way to do something good without, having to commit to a nonprofit or to start one, which is, could be complex and expensive. I mean, like I said, we literally started this business with $100, and so far we've sold just shy of 3,000 candles. And
Nice.
we've when I say bootstrap, we've definitely bootstrapped, and we haven't, it's all been self financed. And
Hmm.
I just want to say out to anyone who may have a similar idea, who has a cause they want to support, or just has something they believe in and they want to promote it. Don't be afraid of doing it, even if it sounds scary, if it sounds like it maybe won't work, because I've had many doubts, starting this, and I've come to learn that when you have those doubts, I think is where the opportunity is, because
Hmm.
most people stop there when that voice in their head says, maybe this won't work or don't do it.
Right.
Surround yourself with people who want to achieve those goals, and just go with it. And just over time. I mean, there was many times where we corrected ourselves, fixed things that didn't work, and we're
Hmm.
going to continue to correct things as we move on. So, don't be afraid to dream. Don't be afraid to have an idea that sounds maybe ridiculous to everyone, but when you run the numbers and when you look at it that it is possible,
Hmm.
that's where that's the real test, and that's what matters. So,
Yeah.
I think that's probably the core of what's been driving us
Love
over
it.
the past
Love it.
couple of
That
years.
mindset is so important. I think we don't talk enough about the entrepreneurial mindset,
Right.
but your mind is the thing that is the most that puts the most limits on you, really. I did
Absolutely.
think of one thing I didn't ask about, and that is
Mm.
specifically soy candles. So
Yeah.
why did you guys go with soy candles? What is it about soy candles?
So we were doing some research on different types of candles, and obviously the most marketed one is paraffin wax, which you'll find in pretty much any store, Yankee Candle or anything like that. And one of the things that was kind of interesting to me is that I didn't really know about is that paraffin is basically a byproduct of petroleum or oil refinery, which is it's to me, if I'm going to burn something in my home, I don't want to burn something that comes from oil. It just
Mhm.
doesn't sound like something that I would like to do. So then I kind of looked into different types. There's coconut, there's soy, there's also palm,
Mhm.
and I found that soy seems to be the most beneficial for a
Mhm.
couple of reasons. One, is the quality of the burn. So it burns a lot slower and longer, so you kind of get more out of your candle. It also is good for your scent throw, so you can smell your candle properly.
Mhm.
Also, it's really just made with vegetable wax,
Mhm.
so you can't fully eliminate chemicals in everything. But what I think you can do is you can reduce it as much as you can
Mhm.
to make something a little bit better.
Mhm.
The other aspect of this that I kind of like is, we get our soy wax from the Midwest in Iowa.
Mhm.
There's a farm out there who works with the company that we deal with.
Mhm.
And as many people know, farming is a very low margin
Mhm.
business. It's a very difficult and hard business to operate in. So I
Mhm.
feel, if we can have a product that is also supporting these farmers in our country, I think
Mhm.
that's something that's positive because,
Mhm.
obviously they can use all the help they can. So that's something that we really pride ourselves on too, is, the fact that we are making things here in the U.S. We're trying to support U.S. companies as much as we can. And in the future, we want to make sure that we can support, U.S. employers and all that, employees and all that type of stuff in the future. So
Mhm.
there's several different benefits to it. Mainly
Okay.
the main one being the fragrance throw, because we've had nothing but positive reviews on the smell of our candles. So
Right. What I love about your whole story is this core values component that you've
mhm.
basically given the example of right here that, profit is important in business, but it can't be the driver, at least for you and
Right,
your family. And, your value of supporting this organization, your value of, like not bringing chemicals into your home if you don't have to, the value of supporting farming in Connecticut. I mean, I think that just stands out really clearly. What it's making me think of is I know that I actually was introduced to you originally through Rick Callahan from
hmm
Creative, who he is my business coach and does my branding and marketing, and he also does for known co-working. And I don't know if you've had the opportunity to actually work with him yet, but the way he starts with people when they become his clients is he helps you do an exercise that helps you come up with these are my core values, because literally everything you do in your business is based on or should be based on your core values. And so he does such a fantastic job of that. Oh, look at that. He just piped in. He's watching. He said all about those core values in business. And I think like this is what sustains us when things get difficult, because we know we're doing this for a very important reason. My business is a coaching and consulting business, and I help people to change their dysfunctional thinking behavior patterns, especially when they have no idea where to start,
right,
because that's what's happened for me. Like, I didn't even know how dysfunctional I was. And so I'm driven, I'm going to do it anyway. I might as well
yeah,
make some money doing it. You know what I mean?
right,
And you're going to raise money for nephrotic syndrome. So you might as well make some money doing it. And you might
yeah,
as well support farms and all that sort of thing. So I really, really appreciate that. And I hope if you haven't already that you do eventually get the opportunity to work with Rick, because he's
definitely.
like exactly the kind of guy that you need. I remember I hired him because I watched him in action doing a workshop with somebody who had like all these different things he was doing, and he like pulled it into one thing, and I was like, okay, that's who I need. So
Right.
anyway, plug there for Rick Callahan of Creative.
Well, I got to say, I definitely agree with that because there's been times where even people have said, hey, you should raise your price on your candles. You can make way much more money, which I
Mm-hmm.
get. There's nothing wrong with making money, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not our main goal. I think money is
Mm-hmm.
more just the product of you serving people. If you're not giving more than what you're taking, then you're not doing the right thing, in my opinion. And it's just something that's always stuck with us. And like I said, as we grow, we're always going to make sure that all of our stakeholders have a voice at the table and do our best. You can't
Right.
please everyone, but if you have the focus on trying to do that, I think that's what's important, and doing it when you have the opportunity to.
Well, thank you so much, Jordan. This has been a really great conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. What
Thank
I'd
you for
like to
having
do
me.
is just take you off the screen for a moment, but don't go anywhere because I want to
Sure.
sign off. So I'll take you off. Thank you again. Goodbye, Jordan. And
Thank you so
for
much.
folks watching, feel free to leave a comment even after the fact. If you're watching the recording, we'll make sure that they get to Jordan.
I also would like to say too, if you do want to donate directly to NephCure,
Mhm.
just visit nephcure.org. You'll be able to donate directly there if you wanted to, if you're
Okay,
more
so it's
comfortable doing that.
nephcare.org.
Correct.
Nephcare. Okay. All right. Thanks, Jordan. All right. I'll be with
Thank
you in
you.
just a minute. All right, everybody, thank you again for joining us for another episode of the Connection Corner. I want to remind you that next week at 8:30 on Tuesday, Julia will be hosting another episode of Digital Media Sync. If you do anything with digital media, you have to check out the recordings of her shows on our website, which are all free. She will teach you how to do whatever you need to do, whether it's marketing or what kind of platform to use, how to host an online event. You need to go check out those shows. And she does a live show every Tuesday at 8:30, which you can go on and comment and ask questions live. Next Thursday on this show at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we will be having Tracy Allen. I mentioned her briefly at the beginning there. She's going to be talking about social enterprises and social entrepreneurship as alternatives for nonprofit organizations for ways to enhance your community or ways to bring funding to a cause. So I hope we'll see you then. Don't forget that you can go ahead and leave comments even if you're watching the recording, and we will make sure that they get to Jordan. Thanks again. Take care, everyone.